So real quick here, just because I'm going to record this and put this up on YouTube as well, even though we only have a couple of viewers right now, I'd like to do a round of introductions.
Sure.
And with your introductions, please mention what genre or genres you write in and your current work. And if you want to hold up your book, go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and start so you guys get a feel for what I'm talking about. It's not that hard, but might as well. So, hi, I'm Mike Conley. I'm a sci-fi and fantasy author. My current book that's released right now is The After. Oops, in this little square. Um, I am working on a couple of other books that are in process of being beta read and hopefully out in a month or two. I Sci-fi is my current genre, although I am working in a lit RPG high fantasy realm for my next series. Whoever wants to go next.
I'll go next. Oh,
Go ahead.
You want to
Go
go? Hi, Gail Delaney. I write in sci-fi romance, suspense, and contemporary. I kind of started in contemporary, went into romantic suspense, then I delved into sci-fi rom, and that's really my love. I'm still dabbling in others, but I know that I'm going to be going back to sci-fi rom as soon as I possibly can. Stack here, but this is the first book I have, and they get wider, thicker with each book, but I released that this year, and that is wrap up for the story arc as it exists, but I have concepts for another continuation of it as well. Right now I'm working on a romantic suspense that is actually based on the idea that Sherlock Holmes was a real man, and I'm writing about his great-grandson. Cool. Yeah, so that's what I'm currently doing, but that's what I released this year was my sci-fi rom.
Nice.
Very cool.
Thank you. Did you want to go, Trevor?
Well, I'm over here searching around like, a cat looking for a missing toy. And, things get misplaced. So I have of Forged by Light sitting around somewhere, but, who knows where it went. But anyway, so I do military sci-fi. Take a lot of inspiration from, people I've met when I was in the Army. Hell, there's at least 3 characters I can think off the top of my head that are directly were in various companies and batteries with me. And frankly, and I always had wanted to write, and 2020 happened, and I was the sacrificial lamb that had to go out and still have a job. So I lived in the garage for like a year because nobody wanted to, have that possible get somebody else sick. So I lived in the garage for a year because I wasn't going to get my family sick. And yeah, well, you sit in the garage long enough, and the gas fumes get to you. You break out the laptop, and you just eventually you throw something together because you run out of video games that are interesting. And so
you got to do, right?
Huh?
You do what you got to do.
To keep the sanity.
Yes.
To keep the sanity. Because there's a certain point where you're just like, if I have to sit in here one more day, I'm going to go insane. And that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, threw together a mil sci and been with it ever since. Right now, I've only got Forged by Light out. I'm working on book 2, Tempered by Pain. It's in its 3rd round edits right now. And hopefully sometime tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, next year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am Poppy O'Ryan. I do not have a book to hold up because I write what is going to be a really long-running serial that is out on Kindle Vella. There are 40,000 words of it that have been published so far. And the Vella is called the Valmoran Chronicles, but you can click in my bio if you want to know more. And the cover image is actually the same image that I use here on TikTok. So it should be pretty recognizable if you want to check it out. But the Valmoran Chronicles right now is the only project I'm publishing. It's kind of my obsession. It's a genre-bending modern-day space opera. And what's kind of funny, because Gail, you said you write sci-fi rom.
Yes.
I read a lot of sci-fi romance. And initially, I thought I was going to write a Fated Mates series of alien romances. But something that always kind of bothered me about the books I was reading is that it was kind of hand wavy. Like, fated mates exist because they do. And I was like, but why? And so I started pulling on that thread and like inventing like an actual reason why this might happen. And before I knew it, it was no longer an alien. Like I could no longer really fit romance in like as a main plot anymore, because it became something that was sort of like Dune scale complexity. I've got a storyline that's happening on Earth that's actually like a speculative fiction with a medical mystery going on. And like, I decided anybody can destabilize Earth by like spreading a pathogen. I destabilized Earth by curing all illness. That happened 8 months before the beginning of the series, and it actually messes things up pretty good. And then in the alien side, there's like this ancient religion, and each of the 300 planets has like an obelisk that has always been there. It provided guidance to the people who lived there. They consider them to be their gods, and there's this priesthood built up around it, and there's a lot of mystery that happens around that as well. There's 8 POV characters with really, really deep characterization, and then these 2 storylines that will eventually weave together. So that is what I'm working on.
Nice.
Very cool. And I want to mention for those of us who are for those that are watching right now, go ahead and interact with us. Make comments. We're going to try to watch that, unless you guys go crazy. Please no asking anyone to perform. For some reason, I've had people keep asking me to say really weird things when I wear a hat. I don't know why.
I mean, it'll be bad.
Or maybe Trevor will do a little thing for us. But today is all about just whatever conversation we want. Sorry about that.
Here somehow, and if it comes with that embarrassing dances, you do what you do. You know,
you do what you got to do.
My favorite.
I'm not going to go that far yet.
My favorite one. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but Drew Hayes has his Patreon, right? And on his Patreon, he's got like, if he gets up to, I think it's like $1,000 a month, or it's some crazy number, right? If he sustains over that number, his stretch goal, his final stretch goal is to put on a T-Rex outfit and video it as he runs around the DFW area.
If I had 1,000 people follow me consistently, maybe I'd do that too. But not quite there yet.
I mean, he does a lot of stuff as like his release day stuff. Like today is one of his release days, and starting at whenever he starts it, he does a 24-hour shot-a-thon. Every 1,000 rank goes up, he starts taking shots. And let's just last I checked, the new book is ranked like 600. I'm pretty sure he's probably pretty tipsy by now.
Yeah, I hope they're like quarter shots or something,
Oh no.
Oh.
No.
We don't need livers. What are livers?
I did the Century Club one time in my life, and if you haven't heard of that, that's 100 shots of beer in 100 minutes. I can't imagine taking any vast amount of real shots very quickly.
every book release, and for some reason, I mean, it's done him pretty well. It's one of those things that does you pretty well, I guess. Hey,
well, you find you work it.
Yeah. I found one guy on release days has his wife come in and with a cattle prod and hit him every 100 ranks he climbs past 1,000.
That works. When writing dual or more genre, what factors do you consider when deciding the prime genre? Who wants to take that one? As
Oh, I just had a
is
good
that a
video
marketing
response to
question?
someone.
Do
Is
you
that a
have
marketing?
a specific person you want that to answer that?
Yeah, we can all probably take that.
Well, and specifically, is that a question of like, how do we market it?
Or are you referring, Eric, to like science fiction can be a genre and romance can be a genre, and when we're combining those, kind of what is the primary? Because I'll take this a little bit. I've struggled with that to try to figure out the best way to market my sci-fi rom, because it's not the same kind of sci-fi rom that you see a lot of.
Right. Not what I was talking about.
Yeah. Fated mates. I don't have, giant 7-foot aliens that are blue. My sci-fi rom is actually set on Earth, and it's set in the mid 21st century.
Yep.
And it's after post First Contact, and there's a lot of deception and such, but the aliens aren't, hi, I'm an alien. There's a lot of ways that they kind of blend in. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even spicy. I'm at best, and I considered for a while whether I should be marketing the series as just science fiction. But I'm really finding that there's kind of a delineation between readers. You're either a sci-fi and don't touch it with romance, or you're sci-fi rom. So I couldn't kind of shift back and forth, and I had to commit to sci-fi rom because the romance is very key. It's just the same kind of sci-fi rom that I'm up against. I don't want to be detrimental in any way to other books and such, but I'm just not writing that type of sci-fi.
That's not what you're writing, and I'm not either.
Not aiming
actually,
for the crowd.
I think. What were you saying, Trev?
You're not aiming for the tentacle crowd.
No. And I'm actually in sort of the same boat, Gail, because like part of why I signal so much with like my colors and my marketing that there is love and connection and romance in my series is that some people just like they want to read about things they don't really want to read about love. And that's okay. Like that's totally valid.
Yeah.
But the story I'm telling has a lot of science in it.
Yes.
But it's ultimately a story about people and connections and found family and love. It's in there. It's not spicy at all. My dad is my number one fan. There's no way it's spicy. But I know what you mean, because you almost need to warn people, hey, there's romance in this. So if that's not something you like, then that's okay. Like you can, like, you don't have to read this. But
yeah.
But it's very tricky.
It's character-driven science fiction.
Yes.
It's often science fiction that's very plot-driven.
Yeah.
And mine is not about necessarily what's happening as much as how the people deal with what's happening and how they,
right there with you. Yeah. Really character driven.
I'm kind of with you guys there, though, but I'm also in space opera. So space opera allows for the romance.
Yes.
Because space opera does.
Yes. I suppose, yeah.
Milsci doesn't necessarily touch romance with a 10-foot pole, and if it does, it's one of those. It's like, what's below a tertiary plot line? Yeah, it's there. It is there.
Yeah,
that's about as far as it goes. Is the fact that it is there.
Yeah.
So,
Eric, if you removed it, you probably wouldn't even notice.
Eric, to comment on one of yours, you read sci-fi rom, but you wouldn't read rom sci-fi, and that's kind of the thing we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend you look into space opera, though, because that might get you enough of the rom that you're looking for without going too far over.
Not all space opera has it.
All space opera should have relationship, but that relationship may not be romantic. So, like, you think of Mandalorian, that's going to be a familial. Think of Star Wars.
Yep.
They kind of romantic, kind of familial, go back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's one that's going to get you there. But to go back a little bit about your primary genre, The great example to get someone to think about a primary genre is to take Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars is, space opera. It's space fantasy. It's romance. It's, it tries to go in places hard sci-fi never really gets there.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of a combination of all those things. But when you look at it, its primary overarching thing is space opera.
Mm-hmm.
They just hit those other genres in places. And so when you take a step back from your story, whatever your story is, think about when you just were taking an outside look at it. If you don't focus in on individuals too much and take an outside look, what is the genre it screams? And if it, for my case, it screamed space opera, that's where I'd go with it. Star Wars is the same way, screams space opera, but you get into the details of it, they do have space fantasy in there. And if you're interested in the conversation between fantasy and space opera, you can look at one of my posts from earlier today where I'm combating someone who's trying to delineate those lines way too harsh.
Yeah. Like when it comes to those sorts of things, like I knew I was getting myself into trouble when I invented the plot for this story. Like I was like, Sarah, do you want to make marketing a nightmare? Like, can you just write to a genre and tropes? And I was like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. And so, like I knew what I was getting into, and that's why I like TikTok, because I can get on here and I can be like, these are the kinds of things that are in it. If you kind of like those things, then you'll probably like it. And that's how I'm getting readers, is telling them about the book, and not necessarily because of the genre. So
I have found that a good way for me to grab attention of sci-fi fans who might be interested in my book is to say that it's like Stargate with a touch of Farscape.
Oh, that's cool.
So, military elements, definitely. It's set on Earth, you have all of that, but Farscape has such an intense character-driven storyline.
Yeah.
Romance, the love story in Farscape, best I've ever seen in any science fiction, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's how when I say that, Stargate with a touch of Farscape, people are like, oh, okay.
Oh, I could get into that. I think I'd be like that. Yeah. Like,
but without puppets.
What was that?
Oh, no I don't have any puppets. No. Rigel was pretty, spot on.
Yeah. You probably would feel the same way, Gail, but like when I had a couple people stop by, one of the coolest comments I got is someone's like, hey, I bet if more people wrote sci-fi like this, more fantasy readers would come over to check it out. And I'm like, awesome. That's amazing. So
One of the first readers I had of my space opera actually said they felt like they were reading fantasy by reading it. It's also one of the first readers who realized they like space opera and they never knew what to call it.
Space opera is kind of like epic fantasy in space.
It kind of is. It's just, all the things in fantasy just in space. Exactly. But I like that because it's not so hard for someone to approach. It makes the story more ready for the masses so that they could really get into it and dive into it, where the hard sci-fi really takes a different mindset and is geared towards a different crowd.
Depends on the author. Some are a lot more accessible than others.
Yeah, true.
I think one of the things that I did is I took the whole the old saying that significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I took that literally when writing sci-fi, because think about it. If you're going far enough with your tech, now hard sci-fi is such a weird term because
it's all made up,
right?
To some degree,
it's all stuff I pull out of my butt. I mean, let's just face it. Some of it's researched, but most of it is like, okay, here's a basic idea, but what's the difference between me going and looking at a light frequency table and how it relates to colors versus opening a D&D spell book and looking up the area of fireball?
Yeah.
Still.
Right. And when you research that wormholes pretty much are impossible and space folding is not possible, but you really need it to be like a thing that exists for your story, sometimes you just decide it exists
I did. I have wormholes, so
They're totally bunk. There's no
You
teleportation.
have to have
That's
some
just
form
too
of
weird.
FTL travel. You
yeah.
have to have
You
FTL.
have to for a good
You have
story,
to,
yeah.
or yeah, unless you're doing like The Expanse, and it's
Or you
like really.
colonization.
But even they put wormholes in, so
Yeah.
Yeah, really big one. Yeah.
a
There's
really big one.
just accepted now. I think that
Oh
they're
yeah,
not seen so much as too far out there. It's just like everybody does it. So,
it's like, oh yeah, that's not possible, but we need it, so it's
yeah.
Yeah, so I've been having a little bit of a conversation with people on Facebook, and then a couple of things I've done on TikTok. There are a whole bunch of sci-fi authors that are really gatekeeping the idea of what sci-fi is, and their notion is beyond just crazy things about what the short name is. Their notion is sci-fi is things that we could possibly develop over time. I've never read a sci-fi book that was accurate to what we could develop over time. All right, Star Trek, maybe with communicators. But you think of like the classics, the time travel, Frankenstein, even the first sci-fi novel.
Yeah, it's all made up.
It's all
Some of
made
it
up.
becomes possible in the future, but
Well, and it if nothing else, it at least provides vision for inventors. But at the same time, if I'm writing hard sci-fi and working with physics and math and thoughts that we already know can happen, how is that providing any kind of vision for people of the future? I mean,
Yeah.
well, I can see like when some people I think it has to do with, so like with wormholes, we know they're pretty much not possible. That's one thing. But if you're writing with like very like adjacent possibilities to real world technology, like I could see that as being sort of a little bit distinct. And if people want to put that in a special category and say like this is my pool and it's where real sci-fi is, like they can do that. Like it doesn't bother me. I've got another pool over here and they can come over if they want, right?
Yeah, I get a little miffed when someone tells me I'm not writing sci-fi when I'm clearly writing sci-fi. Maybe I shouldn't, but I
I'm
did.
like, whatever,
It
like let me
triggered
just,
me a little.
that's
well, see,
fine.
here's the other thing: is we say, like you said, wormholes aren't possible, comma, per our current understanding of
Oh,
physics.
exactly. Yeah.
That's the you've got to have that last section to anything.
Sure, but you could do that same thing for magic, right?
Yes.
Magic's not possible per our current understanding of the universe.
Yeah.
But like I get it. Like there are certain things like we read The Martian, right? Or even Project Hail Mary, aside from the fact that like some of that was also just completely made up. The fact that there's like a microbe that you cannot look into no matter what you use is kind of hard. Like you just have to accept that. But those, like there's a place for it, and I especially love how he takes the concepts of mathematics and science and like it almost becomes slightly educational to read an Andy Weir novel, except that you don't know because you're having fun. But it's just a small piece of sci-fi.
But I mean, I'm not smart enough to pick it apart. Like the other day, I had a question, and I posted it here on TikTok, and I told you guys about it, about the absolute zero versus absolute heat, right? What is the opposite? Because let's just face it, all four of us, every single one of us, could utilize in something a bomb that uses absolute heat, something that would use the hottest something can get, right? We all could. Every single one of us could. But I just don't have the math or even the theory to really understand it. So I was like, hey, what do you say? And the sciencey folks, man, they got after it. Jesus.
See, I just try to avoid the science when you do that. You run into a hot thing and you melt it, and that's about as deep as I've got to go, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes I fall into like a research rabbit hole because whenever possible, I really like for it to be realistic and based on science, but like I have to cut myself off. Like one time I spent like 3 hours looking at crime scene photos to find out what would happen to a body when it fell off a tower. And it turned out that the imagery I wanted was unrealistic because that's not how people die that way. And I used it anyway. And I was like, okay, well, that was 3 hours of your life.
I mean, we're all three of us are on watch. All four of us are on watch lists. You know,
oh, all of them.
Yeah. Although I've tried to block my behavior in ways, I'm sure I've been at least one of my profiles is on a watch list.
Sure. I always try to just use enough science to convince somebody that the character knows what they're talking about. The character isn't going to be, you don't want to do that. Well, as you know.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah.
That. Or I actually have characters who have no idea.
Right
That
there.
was great. The everyman.
Yep.
That it works. Awesome. I'm going to go use that and it's going to work.
Yeah.
So, I've done that. My daughter is a biologist. So I've been lots of times been like, hey, honey, is this possible with DNA and can this happen or whatever? And she answers questions for me and it's just enough.
Yep.
To imply the science. I get excited when I find out that some of my theories actually might work.
Yeah. But with things like
I was going to explain the fact that I don't want to give too much away, but one of the alien races is primarily almost everybody in that race has psychic abilities. They call them talent, but they're also contributory to the human race. We're kind of mingled up with them. So the question was, why would they have so many of their people have talents where so few humans do? And there's actually a genetic theory called prominent recessive genes.
Okay.
And we actually have them. And I know that like 5 fingers, this is recessive, but it's prominent. Most humans have the recessive genes, so we have 5 fingers. So when I found out that it actually would work, that it was I was like, yes! So
I have the same sort of thing, but I have a completely different biological mechanism, and I can't say because it's a spoiler.
I make it into cultural things,
Yeah.
I have a race of aliens that their primary building block of their planet is silver instead of carbon. I'm like, and so instead of where all their food is carbon based, it's silver based. Well, the idea is, think of Avatar metal bending. They can pull that silver out of themselves and move it and use it. But only their God Emperor has access to enough of it per day to utilize that much. So nobody knows they have this ability.
Think of a lot of things to go wrong with that.
Well, that's what makes it interesting, right?
Exactly. And you all have this biological ability, but because the most gifted is your God Emperor is literally being, pumped with, colloidal silver every day, constantly, instead of, I built it a lot off of feudal Chinese culture, right? So nobody can even see him. Nobody sees his face. Nobody sees him. He never leaves the complex. And so it not only is it he's the only one that can, nobody knows. So I make it into a cultural thing, less than a sciencey thing a lot of times, because cultures are weird. Cultures.
Well, and be realistic, 99% of people don't understand how anything works.
Exactly.
That's human nature. And that's the nature it's going to be the nature of any group of people, right? If you have spaceship builders, there's going to be a few people that really understand it, but the rest of them are just driving cars.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the bulk of it. I think there's more likely going to be replaceable parts than there are going to be mechanics on every ship, right?
Right.
And that's just a societal element of when you get to a higher technology. Yeah. Or, in your case, Trevor, it's more of a different society or different entities based off of a different item, but they just take it as second nature because it is, and they don't think to explore it, which is what no one would. Like, if I didn't know I could move metal in my body, I would never think to move metal in my body.
Why would I even try? You know?
Yeah.
There's also a big difference between like when we are doing our world building and then what ends up in our stories. Like there's a lot more like research and rigor and like spreadsheets and craziness that goes into the world building, because as an artist, I need to know what is possible in the world. That doesn't mean all of that hits the page. In fact, like 3% of it hits the page, but it makes
unless you're Tom Clancy.
Cohesive.
Yeah. Right.
What?
Unless you're Tom Clancy, like Eric said.
Yeah. Spending 4 days describing a single weapon.
Yeah, no, that does not happen in the things
those type of books that do that, they are out there. And some people really love to go into the level of detail that just perfectly describes whatever they're working on. It could be a wall, could be a gun, could be a spaceship, whatever. I lose interest personally when I get into something like that.
I have behind the scenes stuff that, like, when people are curious about it, they can come check it out. But that's more like people who are already fans and they're really into it, you know. But I don't let it interrupt the story.
Yeah, and it does interrupt the story.
It
Pet
does.
Sematary. I swear, my memories of Pet Sematary are probably overblown.
Yeah.
But my memory of reading Pet Sematary is 40% of the book was described as walking down the forest. And it maybe wasn't 40%, but my God, it felt like it.
No, you're right.
So those type of things I try to stay away from. I try to tell a story just enough to get the reader to fill in the rest of the detail and be pulled along with me. And I think I enjoy books like that.
Well, not only with the description, but with like the backstory, flashbacks, info dumps, like any of those things. Like you just have to like put it in, prune it down, because it usually just kills the pacing, in my opinion. But
now I get in Tom Clancy stuff though, right? Because the reason people are reading Tom Clancy is because they want to know about that stuff and they really obsess about that stuff. And so maybe for that type of audience, that's the type of writing that makes sense. But I think for all four of our audiences, that's not what we're looking for.
No. But I mean, and you know, Mike, I don't remember if the way you and I met was from a guy that was hyperinflating his love for Tolkien.
Yeah.
And thought, you know, Tolkien could do no wrong. And I'm like, dude, there's 18 pages of grass.
Like, there are some things that are wonderful to have read.
Right.
Like, I love thinking about Dune. I don't like reading Dune as much as I like thinking about Dune.
I agree.
Having read it.
Yeah, I like having read it.
Being able to say you've read it and it feels good.
Heart.
Yeah. It's but I mean, and that's the thing is you've got your people that love that kind of exploration of it. I'm sorry, I legitimately don't care how green the grass is in the Shire. I just don't. It's just green.
Tell me it's green. Let's move on.
Just call it a Shire. Like, right, we're in the Shire, and maybe describe the rounded door that you have to duck through.
Yeah,
because
don't tell me about it being green
and then you're done.
Yeah. If someone has strong feelings about the color of green, then maybe. But like, it has to be based about like the character has to care for me to care.
Or if you're describing the grass because the people are hiding in the grass, right? Like if you had to like describe the grass to get to a different element, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by the way, that guy ended up blocking me.
Game of Thrones is actually how Trevor and I met. That's where the conversation started, was Game of Thrones.
Yep. It started to Game of Thrones and it became Tolkien because he was overly in love with Tolkien. He blocked me. I don't know if I told you. Yeah, he blocked me.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He blocked me, then lost a bunch of views, unblocked me, got back to his videos because a bunch of people, because of my comments, went to view him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that is so weird.
Yeah.
So, okay, just for your guys' background. I commented on this guy who was like bashing Game of Thrones for having unnecessary sex scenes, basically. And his point was you shouldn't glorify that.
Oh, no.
And
It was that if you like it, you need mental help.
yes, I didn't get there yet.
Okay.
You shouldn't glorify it. And if anyone likes it, anyone at all likes Game of Thrones, they need mental help.
I love
Like,
Game of Thrones, and like, yeah, it's like there's.
so I tried to go in and say it's like human nature. I don't look for that type of thing, but I think it was written correctly for human nature and our history of how people would act in those situations.
Yep.
And they're gross, but
sometimes it glorifies a little bit, like the show or the books. I'm not sure. Like the
I don't
show
think
really went extra far, but like there's definitely maybe a little bit of like gratuitous rape that maybe didn't need to be there. But like at the same time, like that's like television and that's books. Like the only thing that kind of bothers me about that is when people are like, "Oh yes, this is like high fantasy," and I'm like, "No, it's like it's really entertaining. It has lots and lots of violence. It has a lot of sex in it. Like, but like it's not changing your. I don't know. When people are like, "Yeah, this is the next Tolkien," I'm like, I don't know.
no, it's totally different. And the way he did it was, unfortunately, with people in power do stupid things when they can, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it went with a lot of those scenes. Now the show had more gratuitous stuff than the book did, but the book was more graphic, if that makes sense.
Well, I expect that, if any of us are ever so lucky enough to get any kind of television deal, right? I promise you, whatever director it's going to be is going to twist it apart.
Absolutely.
And unless your name is Brandon Sanderson and you can write your own contract.
Yeah.
Right.
I have screaming children. But
deals is a lot of writers both there. Like it would be awesome to be acknowledged to the level and have somebody want to do that, but I would constantly be like, no,
Yeah.
not because of this and that. You can't don't no, you would, I would. My personal dream of success would be if people stood in line for Hall H at Comic-Con to see me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's to me that's would...
Yeah.
I want a bunch of people in my Discord server doing fan art and fan fiction.
Oh yeah.
That's success.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Nicole,
I'll be above.
I'm right there with you. We had a couple of comments. Nicole, I'm right there with you. Like the show was a national sensation. It was super fun to follow, but also the last season was like really disappointing.
Very.
Well, I mean, and again, it boils down to, frankly, that's kind of Martin's own fault there. He had years and years of being told, "Hey, if we
finish this,
if we catch up to you, we're writing it."
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
we know it's still not out, so obviously.
Yeah.
Well, and they didn't even follow the last book he wrote very well at all. Like ditched half the story, so it wasn't like they even tried to continue his story.
Right.
And I don't know that they would have, because they were trying to shorten the show. They only wanted one more season, and so some choices had to be made.
And let's just face it, they didn't have any Henry Cavills out there who, would flat out, oh, you're not going to follow the story? Okay, lead actor's quitting The Witcher. Like,
well, that is so sad too, because I don't know that anyone else can really pull that off. And who wants to go after him for doing that?
No.
I know they've got the guy, but really, yeah.
He left because they were going too far off of the source material, right?
Right. They what was it? They weren't following the stories, and Henry is a huge fan of both the books and the games.
Mm-hmm.
And the TV show, the first season, did a great job of following the Blood of Elves. Fantastic job. But yes,
it's Evan
Evan Hemsworth that's going to be the new Geralt.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
the first
not
season,
bad.
he's not
But
bad.
still coming after, yeah.
But it's
Yeah, it's not an enviable position to be in.
When you had someone who was cast perfectly for it, loved it, knew the lore, played it
was a
perfectly.
huge fan.
Well, also switching actors in the middle is just that's just
Right.
not going to be great.
I mean, you can only do that with Doctor Who, you know. Switch
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's
if you
part of the world.
exactly.
It's written into the story of Doctor Who.
that.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with Doctor Who, we have people that absolutely hate certain doctors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. I cannot get. So I really was really excited to have a woman doctor. Leading up to it, I was so excited, wanted it to happen. Very first time, watched that first episode, it sucked.
Yeah.
And then
I
I tried to watch the
He
second
was
one, it
doing great.
sucked.
Yeah.
I feel like it actually irritated me as a woman that they decided that now we've got a female doctor, so let's just make this a really, really overtly political show. And I love spec fic. I love when people ask, like, pose the question. Don't drill the answer into people. And like that's what I felt like they did with the latest Doctor Who. And I think that's why everyone was like, I hate the female doctor. Like I think the actress was fine. I think that
I thought she was a fine actress too. Yeah.
the writers just went off the
Yeah.
rails with making it like this totally politically correct thing, and it just like ruined the spirit of Doctor Who.
Another great example is the last like 2 or 3 seasons of Supergirl before it got canceled.
I stopped watching.
Yes,
That's the
Jodie
point.
was fantastic. They gave her terrible material to work with. I am
Melissa did a fantastic job. And the other thing is that, you know, they took away the sacrifice, right? So what was it, the end of season 5 or something, that she flew the prison back out and she basically sacrificed herself? When they saved her, you cheapen the sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that drives me nuts about authors and books that like to use reincarnation, or not even reincarnation, resurrection a lot, because it really cheapens the sacrifice. Now, Undying Mercenaries does it pretty good. You know, you've got a flesh printer, boop, have a new person out within 30 minutes.
But it's got to be part of really the story, not just like we're going to resurrect him. Yeah.
Right.
and usually there's a cost. Like even if it is fairly cheap to bring people back, usually it's like traumatic or something that makes it. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's resurrection used too freely cheapens the cost. The worst one that always comes to mind with resurrection, and whenever I try to think about it, is Salvatore when he brought Caddy Bree back, right?
I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. R.A. Salvatore back with Caddy Bree. I think it was right at the end of the Ghost King or something like that. Anyway, they brought back a couple of the people that had died. They were humans. All right, they humans, and yeah, like Eric said, nobody ever really died.
Right.
And it cheapens the emotional impact, and all of us want to tear apart our readers' souls. That's what we do this for. I mean,
now,
I don't necessarily do it by character death. It's more just like agony.
I'll admit I have some characters that they don't come back to life because they're in an afterlife, so that's not technically possible. But I do have some characters that
Hey, Joey.
living in places, repeat living in that afterlife. But there is a cost, and there is ultimately cost over time. I'm not going to describe that till later in the series, probably in my lit RPG one. But there are some characters that do have that ability to come back. It's like unresolved issues. I don't want to give too much away, but it's kind of along that nature. But I'm not dealing with someone who is really. It's a different thing because it is an afterlife. It's not like I'm bringing them back living again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, you know, with my series in the Steelcast, right? If you're if you die in battle, the whole thing is that, the government's not going to void your contract just because you died. Come on. You signed up for 20 years. You're going to serve your 20 years. And
that's the side of altered carbon I want to see. The military would work well along with politics, but
oh my
sorry,
God,
I digress.
Well, you have a great point, but I mean, it's like, okay, well, just because you died doesn't mean that we can't slot your brain into an android and make you live it out.
Right.
But what's lost? What mental trauma happens because you are a machine instead of being in a person?
Or even just like, I like when people are brought back, but they're like actually mentally messed up because they can remember dying. Like that's enough in a lot of cases to make the character kind of interesting.
Well, or you're remembering part of your last history. You might not remember your death, but you remember different versions of your life, and that in itself could be, soul altering.
But I mean, and think about it, not just that, but the whole is this my body question.
Yeah.
This isn't my body. Am I still me?
Right.
I've been turned into a singularity, but is the singularity me, or is it just a really sophisticated program? Like,
The Imperfects is good.
I have one element of the series where there is cloning, and there is one particular character who is completely aware of the fact that she is not the original.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even a matter of I am me, but I'm in a new body. She was fully aware of the fact that this person whose memories that she has, she's not that person.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels less human for that. She feels like she's just a byproduct of something, and she's not real. She's not human. She doesn't have the value of a human being. And
right.
The other thing is that you have to play with, like, I know that I am not the real thing.
Yeah.
And too, and the same way, like having your consciousness moved somewhere else. Are you anymore? Or are you some copy of you? Or,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I have like a little bit of this going on. Like I have a background in AI. So of course there's a SOFONT level AI that is in my story, but also like the different civilizations have a lot of different ways that they kind of tweak what is slavery and what is not slavery. And so like cloned people being, maybe not quite all people, and AIs, even if they're sentient, like, are they really people? Is it okay to enslave them? And topics like that are fascinating.
Yeah.
I look forward to your views when you hit parts of my book. But
that one, heck, you don't even have to go far in human history to find questions of that.
Well, that's what, but we don't have to talk about something that's actually like painful for people when we pull it into speculative fiction, and that's kind of what I love.
And that's the other thing is, a lot of authors, I mean, that's part of our job is to,
Absolutely.
Bring real world issues into your books and make them understood in a way, make your message seen in a way that's not...
It's not triggering.
Right.
Not critical. Maybe triggering. Triggering isn't always bad.
In specific real world ways, right?
But maybe
yes, triggering thoughts and emotions and feelings, yes, but
allowing us to process the feeling of othering without like the specific ways we other people hear now.
In some ways you could even do that is to not address it, right? You bring in a problem, you note it as a problem, you don't address it, so that the reader can think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reader can be like, why aren't they addressing this? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you address it a little more later in the book and you keep them going.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like in mine, I have, I decided I didn't want to have skin color or sexual orientation or gender-based discrimination in my alien civilization. It just doesn't exist there.
I do not either. I appreciate that.
But they have a shared 30-year biological generational cycle. All of the children are always born within the same 5-year window, except for a teeny weeny percentage of children who are called outcyclers, and they are the untouchables of society. And they're really obvious because they are literally the wrong age. So one of my main characters is
untouchables or disposables.
Kind of untouchable. It's changing, but in the past they actually thought you could like catch something from them, like, oh, your biology's all messed up, I don't want to do that.
The outsiders.
So it's really like, you're weird, like you're usually given up as a ward of the state because your parents don't want to be someone who has an outcycler child. And so one of my main characters is a super progressive politician. He's an empath, which makes it worse. And, so he's really cynical, but he's also super duper progressive. And it's this really interesting sort of thing. So definitely hit on othering really hard, but it's like from a totally different angle. I'm not bringing like real world issues into it.
So it's what I wanted to do, like, because mine's an afterlife, I decided to start it with almost no memory for people. Right. So they're starting off with a fairly clean slate. So you're getting rid of racism, you're getting rid of, sexism, all those things. But there's still going to be assholes out there, right? And when you get assholes out there every now and then, assholes get together and try to control people. And in this one, they actually created a new religion specifically for the purpose of controlling people. And I addressed that. Didn't go into depth of the religion, although I spent way too much time in my headspace there. But didn't go into depth of the religion yet. We'll get into the politics in a later book. But they're the big bads of the situation, just because some assholes wanted to get together and control others, even in a fairly utopic afterlife.
We have a comment.
Yeah, kind of Scientology. Yeah. I did not introduce a clam in a volcano, so I think I kept it kind of different.
I went in a different direction with it a little bit. I went more towards the government controls people by controlling communication. Okay. The only people that have free travel is the military. And in fact, Earth, that's the whole reason why it takes, it's such a hard decision to join in the first place. Earth has a zero communication policy with the rest of the Republic. Period. And it's pretty quickly seen that Earth is nothing but a baby farm for soldiers. That's
interesting.
Does Earth know that?
No, not really.
Maybe that's why there's a communication block.
Yeah.
You join when you go to talk to your recruiter and you swear your oaths like you would in processing for the Army. You're
we just got an election warning.
Are we saying things that we like? Is it confusing our sci-fi talk for real world talk?
Yes, it's me.
Yeah. Oh. So this time it was you. You said Army, and the Army, the thing popped up right immediately when you said Army.
See, military sci-fi. Apparently, we can't.
Apparently,
we had one last night too.
Yeah,
it's Stormtrooper sci-fi. That's what it is now.
Sure, sure. Let's go with that. But God, but now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. Anyway, Eric's got a point. Yeah, I doubt it. Communication is.
They're starting
keeping people misinformed.
So the whole communication block, North Korea tries it, China tries it, but we get through, right? Iran tries it, but they get through. And that's really the interesting thing. Whenever someone says communication block, what about the ones that get through? Like, does anyone get through your communication block?
That's what I want to know.
Everything, when all of your travel is controlled by the military, and you only occasionally see, like, the AHF soldiers aren't even allowed back down on Earth. They can go to Phoenix Prime. They can go to any of the other planets. The other planets know that the military exists, but Earth, the only thing you're told is, hey, we're going to, same thing the Army tells you here. We promise you adventure, we promise you a paycheck, and we promise you 3 hots and a cot.
So the public's not even aware of the rest of the Republic?
They know the rest
So
of
the human public.
They know it exists, but the only thing they ever see is their senator. Right? They have 4 senators to represent Earth, and that's it. That's the only people from Earth they see. Or from the outside they see. Now that does cause problems at the end of Lytech 1. Because, by keeping the reason they do it is to keep Earth secret, keep Earth safe. If Earth has no communications, then obviously it's our ancient homeworld is still safe. Well, that backfires when somebody finds you and you don't have a battalion station there, right?
And once the Pandora's box is open,
right?
that I play with that a bit in mine, in that although the series is set in mid 21st century, First Contact is in our 2022 past, right? So if you were to plop into this storyline in 2022, we would know about aliens, we would know all of this, everything is changing, but there are people who want to just ignore the fact that we know there's alien, the la 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 la.
Yeah, like, no, don't tell me.
Yeah, we're going to stay on our planet and we don't want them here. And once that bridge has been crossed, you can't uncross it. You can't go back to just being the big blue marble and nobody else exists anywhere. So I can see how that would work with you, Trevor, too, that once people start finding out, it's like, oh, what was it? What was his character name? Mr. Universe from Firefly.
Okay.
He had the communication port.
Like, yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. It was Mr. Universe in Serenity.
Yeah. It was constantly.
You can't stop the signal.
Yes. Still in the verse, right? And he was constantly pushing that out because people weren't getting that information. And once you have the information, you can't not have the information.
Right.
So it's an interesting play on it too.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot you can mess with, and government secrecy is always a fun one for me to play with, because I remember all the things that hey, these are the things you can talk about, these are the things you can't. These are the things you're allowed to even know about, and you're allowed to use this particular weapon system, but don't you dare unscrew that one screw. You look underneath that panel and you're going to disappear. Like,
I also like playing with secrets that are being kept, that, like, when you find out about them, you wish you didn't know. Like, like, oh, you were keeping this secret and I thought I wanted to know, and I don't want to know.
I don't want it. Yeah.
Is there a reason you're hiding it, right?
Yes, like most of the time we assume people are keeping things secret, like, and we want to dig into that because we're really curious. But I like playing with the idea of things that it's better if people don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. If Earth's not allowed to know what's going on, is there a reason besides just, well, we just want you as a baby farm, or is there more behind it? Or is there more out there that we're protecting you from?
Never learn how the sausage is made. Right.
Trust me, I'm originally from South Louisiana. I remember walking into my great grandma's kitchen one day and seeing her tapping on the pot saying, "Get back in there, yo." Michelle, you best get back in there. I remember this. This is my history. You never want to know what's actually in Cajun food. You just stay out of the kitchen and eat whatever grandma puts in front of you. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, I am Patrick F. Johnson. How you doing?
Hi, science fiction author.
Do you guys follow Patrick F. Johnson?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm science fiction author Patrick F. Johnson.
I know.
I don't know if I do now.
If you did, you'd understand what me and Trevor are doing.
No, I don't know what you're doing.
And you'll also know how I came up with my opening, because I stole part of his.
Oh.
I'm shameless.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Every video he starts off like that. So, yeah.
Trevor got a kitty cat.
Ah.
Did you know that
Poppy
you can
got a
just
kitty
click
cat.
on people and follow them? Like, so anybody who's been hanging out in here and they've got cool things to say, you can just follow them. It's awesome.
Yeah. That I do. Why not?
See,
where did I get a cat? I don't have a cat.
I saw the message. You got a cat.
Thank you for a cat. Give me a cat.
I have 2 dogs in here with me right now.
So, some of the things, because I'm the host, sometimes they don't see all the things I do. So Joey sent cats, and I got a little pop-up saying that Trevor got a cat.
Oh.
And
all right, I have a cat.
So that's where you got. So right now you have 5. I don't know what those are. Gold pieces.
Gold,
whatever they are.
I don't really understand. So this is like my second live ever. We did a test one last night, but like, what is with the weird gamification of the presents and stuff? Like,
so people pay for the presents.
Okay,
and
so
then they
so that the
donate
platform can
to
take
you.
half.
Platform takes half. And you only get to cash it out after you get some enormous number that most of us that don't, do things like show skin aren't going to get very often.
You have to have a cat,
and Trevor's working
and a
on
beverage.
it. So there's ways to work on it, but even the ones that show, skin ask for other ways to get money too. So they have like their Cash App or whatever people use.
I mean, look, hey, times are tough, man. Like
Asking for money. I
got.
So to say it officially here, first, follow everyone on here if you haven't already. As you can see, we're a great crowd of people. Not only that, we all write books. Yeah. So check out our links. You can see links to our books or our Velas for those of us that do Vela. And help support some indie authors. We are all indie authors. Gail, you're indie, right?
I am, yes.
Okay, so we're all indie authors on here.
I wasn't always, but now I am.
And Queen Apocalypse is in the chat. She's another indie author, or aspiring to be indie author.
50. I am now following you. Sorry.
So
I love friends.
If you consider yourself a sci-fi author, shoot me or one of us for a message, and we might have a Discord for you.
Yeah, I think I've sent it to Queen Apocalypse already. I think. Did I send you a link to your Discord?
What?
Queen, did I send you a link to a Discord server?
I mean, I'm sure I would absolutely love to see every single
awesome.
The Discord from Patrick better start with I'm science fiction author Patrick F. Johnson and then comma and then whatever he wants to say. That's if you join Patrick, that's how you have to do every single post.
Yeah. So I'm Patrick F. Johnson. I have not sent you the Discord server, but I should send you the Discord server.
I've heard that you're not supposed to really start with an intro like that. You're just supposed to like be all excited and just start talking. And
so I don't start quite like that. I call people nerds first.
Patrick, you have to understand, it works for Patrick.
It works for him.
Works very well. It's the cadence he has. I don't. And it's so I made a stitch of his the other day, and I recorded myself saying that. It took me 8 times to say his name right.
Yes.
I think everyone who's friends with him or have seen him has done a stitch with him on it. It's funny.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, but he only says what he is with one type of author. Like I did a stitch with him. I'm like, I'm sci-fi. No, I'm zombie apocalypse. No, I'm fantasy author. No, I'm.
Yeah.
I write books that I like for
I write books
who like them.
I would.
Ooh, podcaster.
Yeah.
See, I should just be inviting
would
people
totally
to come
be
on
into
board. Here,
Yeah.
let's.
Gladly.
Podcast with Eric, and he was awesome to do a
You
podcast.
did?
So I recommend doing that. Yep.
I'd
I
gladly
would be
do it.
all over that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here, I just invited 2 more people. We'll be the Brady Bunch set of squares here now. If they come on.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's not like intimidating at all to suddenly be invited on camera.
You know.
You know, some of us are ready for it all times.
Yeah, well, some of us are girls.
And some of us don't wear pants when we write, okay?
Well,
You just need hats. Hats are the easiest thing to make it work.
Well, I'm just happy I've managed to figure out a way to do this without having to hold my phone the whole time, because I don't have a tripod. I don't have anything. And Mike was nice enough to send me some ideas. But then I remembered this thing that I had bought my son a couple years ago. It looks like a big spider, but it's all bendy, and you can for your phones and stuff. And I just kind of have it hooked on my computer monitor, and it's holding it at the perfect height for me. So
that's cool, guys. We didn't mean to spring it on you.
I meant to spring it on you.
I've got my laptop open.
It would be fun to do this again sometime. Yeah, I would love to do a live.
We'll do it next Tuesday if you guys are up for it. Patrick, if you want to do it next Tuesday, Queen, if you want to do it next Tuesday, I'm all for it.
Yeah, if you hop onto the Discord, you'll be able to. We can actually plan.
Yeah.
Well, and we could bring topics so that we don't just end up revisiting the same thing. We could bring topics. We could do random stuff, and there's enough in sci-fi.
There's enough things that we could flip through that even if we don't bring them, I'm sure one of us. I know I could. I'm sure each one of you could. We can come up with next topics. So I tend to not want people to prepare. The reason, if people prepare, they come in here nervous with things to say. They have a paper in front of them. And I tend to not like that. I want the real engagement.
When I said prepare, I meant I would come with a list of 12 things. Tell about a character.
Bullet points.
Patrick, you are now required to wear the leopard onesie.
Poppy, I totally believe you would do that from your background. I get it. But other authors I've seen would obsess with it. They have a whole outline. They have these.
It would just be icebreakers. Let's each describe our favorite character from our latest book, or what
Patrick,
do you think about
I dare you to wear your onesie. I dare you to wear your onesie. This is
a requirement.
A throwdown now. You must do it.
Possibility is a requirement.
Is it onesie time? I also have these weird rainbow cat ears that I've thought about wearing, just because I like them.
Yeah,
I have a crown.
Ooh,
so.
I have a crown.
To answer your question about times, today we started at 19:30 Eastern. Probably the best time to do, honestly, is for me. 19:30 works. So I don't know about you guys.
7:30.
19:30. Yeah. I'm military time. How do I parse this? The time we did it tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
7:30 Eastern. Yeah.
I do.
Cool.
I do all my times in military time because, well, I mean, when you have to work with safe time windows, that just becomes your life.
That's so fitting.
What?
The military
crown, colorful ears. Yeah.
I'm I write sci-fi. It's weird.
Yeah, I actually got this from one of the people I've mentioned to the 3 of you yesterday, or 2 of you yesterday. That was someone who took a chance from a live, saw me on a live, took a chance on my book, never read sci-fi, became my biggest fan, and then they bought me this.
Dragon puppet.
Excellent.
I've seen those. Those are great.
I thought it was a duster for a moment. Like you're wrapping a duster around your head.
So what I'm getting from this is that sci-fi authors are weird.
Very.
I mean, did you not?
Why?
Trevor's going spicy. Yeah.
Hey, look. You all have seen what Pro Writing Aid was trying to change my book into.
That was hilarious.
I sat there after that, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
You're like, are you even looking at the book now?
Yeah.
What?
This is why I accept whatever it tells you to change it to, because I could have a very different novel by the end of it.
Yeah. I need to consider looking at Pro Writing Aid again. Like, I used it once, and it destroyed my voice, and I was just like, nope, not doing it. Like, so this is boring.
it came down to a budget thing for me. So I know it's a pretty controversial topic, but this year, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same with a lot of folks this year, but this year with inflation and everything, affording an editor is just not in my cards. And so I was talking to one of my buddies that's got 20 or so books out, and I said, is it reasonable to self-edit, and can it be done? And he said, well, the answer is yes, it can be done if you're careful and if you have enough people reading it over as well to catch the stuff that you're too arrogant not to catch.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat back and I tossed it back and forth, and was like, okay, do I eat for 2 months and just pay $60 for Pro Writing Aid, or do I starve and hire the editor that I've used in the past, but she's just as hungry as I am.
Yeah. Well, and there's different kinds of editors, right? So, like, I just hired a developmental editor who's going to help me go back through the episodes just to like level up my pacing game and go back. That's one thing I like about writing novellas is people are reading them, people are loving them now, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go back and make them even better. But one thing that she said is that the actual language and grammar, like, there's not really a problem there. And since the first 6 people who always read the next episode are people I know, if there are any typos I missed, I always hear about it and I can just go fix it like right away. So it's a little bit different. Eventually, if I'm like rolling in it, I might pay for other types of editing, but I've found that like with this particular flow, it's just not necessary.
Well, and Eric, to your point, it's not that I'm using Megan Harris. She's here on TikTok. She's fantastic. It's not that Megan's not reasonably priced. It's that I have 2 kids and I want them to eat. And I try to separate the money from my day job from the money from writing, and I only budget X amount of dollars for, what can I spend on book stuff as opposed to,
Yeah, kids don't need food. They only eat this much, right?
Yeah. Have you seen my son? Jesus. My
is
son's a rail. Like, he's nothing, and he eats like 5 times what I ever have.
My son is a freshman in college, so yes, I've seen people eat.
my son is 2, so he doesn't touch anything. But my daughter will. Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna switch my hat for a second. I'm gonna move my author hat to the side, and I'm gonna
put on the editor hat.
I am a freelance editor.
Yeah.
And I just started doing it freelance last year. I have 17 years of professional editing experience, but I decided last year to do it freelance, to do it my way, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have heard so many times, authors who have looked into editing and they are choking at the cost. And I would rather have 3 clients who I charge less than to try to get that one client who can actually afford to pay as much as some people want them to pay.
Yeah.
I'm here for the indies,
Yeah.
I am an indie now. Like I said earlier on, I was traditionally published for a while. I actually even owned my own publishing house for 10 years.
Queen.
that I closed a few years ago. Indies are my heart, right? I want all of us to do well. So I try really hard to be in a price range that more people can,
Yeah.
I might have to hit you up because, like, again, like, it's right now, I just sort of launched this thing out of nowhere. I only started writing it 2 months ago. And, today I set up a Discord server. And so it's just sort of like this nonstop thing. It got away from me and became more popular. It's a good problem to have, but it got popular faster than I was ready for. Yeah. So now I'm like, like episode 1 isn't as polished as I want. And so I might have to come check you out, Gail.
Absolutely. In my, on my thingy that they don't like you to talk about.
The thingy?
Yeah. When you go into that, there's another thingy that specifically says editing.
You can interact with it.
You tap on it, and it will tell you things that you may want to know. So
well, and like I said, I'm not opposed to hiring an editor. I mean, I did it for Forge by Light, but it's just one of those things. I look back and I said, well,
well,
and it's different when you're like, if you're writing a book, like when I get to either between 90 and 120,000, I'll have finished the first major arc and be at a stopping point. And at that point in time, I may actually put it into book form. Because it's a little bit expensive to read along on Bella. So like when the book is running that long, I'll either be putting it on Patreon or in a book or both so that people can catch up to the serial faster. But I think there's more commitment when it's going into print.
Yeah. Oh, this is true. And it's like I said, I sat down with somebody I knew, and I was like, okay, so I need your advice. You've been doing this for like 20 years and you've got like a ridiculous number of books out. What are your thoughts on this? And he was like, just do what you can do. And if it takes you a long time, be careful. It takes longer to do it right, and that's how long it takes you. And I think that's working so far. Tempered is coming along pretty nicely, so can't complain.
The biggest problem you're going to have, and I've used Per Writing Aid. I've gone through and edited my book 15 times, and I've even done read-throughs with the tool with Scrivener. Biggest thing you're going to find being the author is the text, and you're too. It's just your mind. It's a thing they've studied.
Yeah,
you're gonna miss things that others would catch.
Well, and I say it's unedited, but I edit it. My son tears it to shreds. And
that's what you have to have. You have to have someone that tears it to shreds at minimum.
Right.
And that's what an editor. So my second book, I finished writing my second book in February last year. I've been out of work, and so I've been holding off on getting an editor.
Bye, Patrick.
I will not release it until I have an editor do it, because I don't have someone who shreds it to the level I need.
Yeah.
That someone needs to come through and actually do the hands-off look with no emotional attachment.
Oh, yeah.
And if you've got that,
weirdly enough, my son is so good at it. He he's so kind, and then he switches. He's like, I don't want you, like, you're missing opportunities here. I don't like that. And it's perfect. I couldn't ask for a better alpha reader than my son.
My wife reads mine as an alpha, but she likes me too much, so it's
well, my son and I, again, we get along really well, but
my wife doesn't.
Yeah.
Just glad part.
But he's doing it from a place of, like, he knows how much I love this story, and he cares about the story too. So it's, like, it's not personal. It's just like, let's attack this story and make it as good as it can be.
Mm-hmm. I also let my wife read it, like, after my first round of editing. And I probably do another 5 rounds at minimum of editing of my own before I go to beta.
Easily.
It's actually shocking to me that any typos ever get through, but, like, it's, so after about the 12th time, you post it, you read it, and then you're like, how did I miss a word?
You have AI looking at it with you, and it misses it. You know, like how does it get through? But it does. You know?
But what's
It doesn't.
beautiful is that's why I love Vela, because somebody's like, oh, hey, like you spelled draped draft. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to go fix that right now. So,
Yeah. Whatever works, right?
Yeah.
That's why, like, I put Tempered up on Royal Road, and I was like, hey, if you see any stuff in the story, throw it at me. I put it was my first draft. It was god awful. Yeah, just everybody's first draft is god awful. But I put it all up on Royal Road, and you know, people, of course, they give you their feedback of, oh, well, this works, this doesn't, and that's kind of how I go. It is I'm kind of crowdsourcing my editing as much as I can.
I think the scariest thing, like that is different from the times I've tried drafting novels before, is that like once an episode is published and there's like important canon events that happen in it, I can no longer like move episodes around. And that's the thing that like kind of freaks me out, because I've got 8 POVs and I'm weaving these stories together. That is what happens in Scrivener before anything gets posted, is just like continuous reordering of episodes, because once it's out there, I'm stuck with that. Like I can rework what's in an episode to a certain degree. But what were you gonna say, Gail?
I think that's why Vela scares me. I am they cringe at this, but I'm an edit as I go writer. Mm-hmm. I am a pantser. So things happen. And then sometimes I go, ooh, okay, I'm going to have to go back and fix that.
Yeah.
When I'm done with my first draft tends to be very, very clean because I'm constantly doing that. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking, how could I do that on Vela? Because
I'm a plantser. And I've actually found that Vela is good for me, because otherwise I'm constantly redoing. Like I'm like, oh, I could make this thing better. I could make this thing better. Yeah. And what happens is I also skip scenes if I'm like, oh, this is going to be emotionally difficult to write this scene. I'll like skip over it. Vela makes me like, I can plan out of order. And I have things in Scrivener that are way out in the future that are just sketched out, and I can move the folders around. But it forces me to actually polish and release sequentially. Okay. And that has been really, really good for my ADD brain, because this is the first time I'm actually publishing anything, because every other manuscript, by the time I got to the end, I just hated the whole thing and just threw it away. So,
oh no, you never throw away.
Ooh. Well, no, it still exists, Gail, but like the first 3 manuscripts, to be perfectly honest, people were telling me, oh, just keep writing through it. Like, the advice people give, like, just keep writing. And what I learned is that doesn't work for me, because if I have like that gut twinge, it's because there's something structurally wrong.
Yeah.
And what I get is a pile of hot garbage if I just write through and ignore my intuition on that. But it took 3 manuscripts for me to learn what works.
Yeah. Have to figure out. I've tried, early on, even with this series, I've been writing this series for a long time. I tried plotting one of the books. Mm-hmm. It looks nothing. Absolutely nothing like that plot. And I learned I had to give up on the idea of plotting. It just
I don't plot so much as like, I know what the big secrets are. I know kind of like the big things that are going to happen. Yeah. And I know more detail the closer it gets to what's written.
Yeah.
That's how I work.
I think so. The first time I've ever plotted is right here, talking with my daughter.
But retconning is bad. I don't retcon. Sorry, we had a comment.
So I plotted with her 1 page worth of stuff, because she and I are writing a book together. Oh. So this is the only time I've ever plotted.
All right.
I'm 100% pantser whatsoever. And if you look at this is just lines of scribbles of thoughts. Yeah. That's not for plotting.
But when you say that you're 100% pantser, that doesn't mean that you haven't like world built. Right?
I've world built in my head. Like, I
Right.
lay up at night world building every night, that's...
But like there are rules. There are like that this happened in the history and like
Yeah.
because at least for me, like some of those things I need to know what's real in the world so that I can like kind of play in that.
So I guess the difference, and I've heard this with every pantser, right? We call ourselves pantsers because we don't go and document.
Mm.
But all of us have had the outline or the idea in our head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's not like we don't have some concept. We have a concept, we have our characters, we have the world or parts of the world. They aren't fully fleshed out though. When we get and start writing the words, we flesh that out even further. But we have that overarching thing just up in our noggin.
I'm curious with you guys, like, what is your process? Like, when you sit down and you're like, this is the next scene I have to do. Like,
So
what does writing look like for you guys?
I am not a pantser at all. Okay.
Okay.
For me, it's an Excel document. I draw little squares. I type not every single chapter, but the key points of every chapter that's going to be in it. And whenever I outline it, I actually start those boxes at the climax. And then I write the climax to the end of the book. And then I go back and start back at chapter 1.
Oh, you write backwards.
I
you write the end and then the beginning?
To the end. And then I go back to chapter 1 and I figure out how do I get to that climax. Mm-hmm. And I put everything in little boxes. And every box is a chapter. And, it's flexible enough that I can add things and take things. I can add things and take things and change things if I need to. And that's why it's got little boxes. I can swap around chapters. I can delete chapters. But for me, I'm entirely too much of a planner in the first place. Think about it. I literally, my day job, I read blueprints and make it happen.
Okay.
I look at a plan and say, okay, how can I execute this? Right. That's what I do. That's who I am. And so for me, it comes down to, if I don't have a plan, I'm just going to ramble for 50,000 words. And all of a sudden we're going to wake up and not know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I've always got, when I'm doing my first draft, now that outline only exists for the first draft, but I've got the screen divided in half and I've got my Word here and I've got my Excel document here and I just.
See, for me, it's the folder structure in Scrivener is like, that's my tentative outline. I know, like, I have color coded whose POV it is so that I make sure that makes sense. But most of it is just like all in my head. I'm like, okay, so this character has this arc, this character has this arc, these plots are coming together. Like, this kind of development needs to happen before this does. And so it's a lot of walking around and just like playing with it in my head and then coming back to Scrivener and reordering the order of those scenes. I don't know if that is anything close to anyone else's process, but
not mine.
You can't know the destination first, right? Yeah. I'm looking at Steampunk's comment there.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I need to know, because when I'm imagining, when I'm daydreaming these things, I daydream the cool parts. We all do. And so the cool part of my daydream becomes my climax, and then how do I get there? Right. That's how I do it. That's how
I don't just daydream like that for me. Like, I walk around until that scene is right. Like, it has a beginning, it has an end, it has an arc, the right growth happens. I'm revealing, like, until it feels right, like, it doesn't go out. So sometimes the scene's late and people are okay with that.
You're also a little different because of how you have to do each episode. She's got to think about the whole, like a whole book for every episode.
Well, and also every time I release something, I have to live with it forever. So
No, you had asked about what our process is. Oh, go ahead.
Gail was going to say something.
I was going to say, I'm a pantser, but I am a linear pantser.
Okay.
So when I start a book or start a story, I know I know the goal of M, the goal of S, and what and Z to be. But I can't jump around to get to that.
Me neither.
I can't write chapter 13 until I know what happened in chapter 10, because as human beings, everything that happens to us changes our view on the world. So I can't know how a character is going to respond to something in chapter 13 until I live chapter 10.
If I'm
Because you didn't flesh it out. You didn't have, so
Yeah.
But
I'm
sometimes
exactly
my
like you.
characters-
You have the general idea. You have some notch points, right? You got
Yep.
some things you got to hit, and then the character evolves as you write it.
But what
Exactly.
about
And
the
so if
times
you don't
when your
evolve them, you
characters
can't.
just totally, like, something just pops into your head, the characters are talking, like sometimes that happens and it's not something that's going to happen for a while, so I just jot it down and stick it in a later folder.
See, that always
Sometimes
happens when I'm typing, so it happens real time.
Oh, like, no, this happens when I'm trying to sleep at 4 a.m. Like,
Yeah.
So I don't rehash. Like if I've gone, I tend to not. Sometimes every now and then I do. But if I've written chapter 1, 2, 3, when I'm thinking about it again, laying in bed at night, I'm thinking about the continuation, or book 2, or book 3. But I'm not thinking about what I've written, because that's reality now.
well, no, I'm talking about the future. Like, I have 8 characters whose stories are coming together, and sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally gonna, like, I can see this conversation happening when these characters get together, and so I'll write it down. When I get there, I might throw it away. It might, like, as Gail was saying, it may no longer apply, but just in case, like, that is actually what they do.
I
Like,
have
when I'm
ideas
super
like that.
tired.
Like I know how my series is going to go. I know what book 3 is going to be like. I know what my whole secondary series is going to be like in my head. I have not a single thing written down anywhere for that.
Yeah.
I even know some of the conversations they'll have about things.
But do they, like, straight talk in your, like, when it's that clear?
No, I don't
like,
have
I'm
an inner
tuned into
monologue.
the radio. I'll just go type it down.
So the world lives in my head. I have zero inner monologue. I'm one of those people
We're
that
opposite. I have aphantasia, but I can hear symphonies in my head.
So I literally,
You don't
I
have
could
an inner
build the
monologue?
world. I do not have an inner monologue at all.
Yeah, I know.
I don't get it.
I talked to somebody about that today, and I was like, "So you haven't had somebody talking to you since you were 2? Like,
Yeah, like, constantly
No.
talking to me.
I have no inner monologue whatsoever. But I could create a whole universe in my head, and I could start making the characters grow and do stuff in my head. They're not interacting with me. I'm creating a story from them.
No,
and
like,
no
they'll
one
talk.
there is talking to me. Like, I don't. This is why I write first person present tense. No one's telling. So first person past tense is like someone sitting down and telling you the story, but you're still in their head. First person present tense is if it's happening to you. The reason I like that is because the way I think. I do not have someone talking to me. I don't have someone sitting there telling me a story. I'm controlling their story.
I used to do first person POV because I felt like I could get deeper into the character, which is part of, like, that's the thing.
It's closer, more immediate. Yeah.
The problem with this is I have 8 characters and not all of them are totally likable. So I actually rewrote to third person to intentionally give a little distance because of the first people who read it. They said that.
Yeah, if you're doing that many, I would too. I wouldn't do first person for more than like 4. If you're doing like 4 people, you could still do first person as long as you do something like split it at scene or split it at chapter from your main point of view. But if you're doing lots, you can't really do first person everywhere.
For like a psychological distancing that like that was why I made the switch.
Yeah, I as a cast of characters too. My series, it's 8 books. There's probably 20 characters that are primary, not primary, but important, right? There's probably 16 that at some point are the forward characters for a book. Like each book has, because it's a romance series, right? So each book has that couple that is in the front, but all those other characters are in their life and they're in the activities and they're in all of that. So I write from third person because of that.
Do you write from like a more objective, or is it a really deep?
Deep. I do third person.
I do really deep third person as well.
Yeah, person close.
So the only thing about deep third person is you have to be careful from the jumping.
Well,
so
yeah.
You have to
only
be clean.
one. Just it's always one character, one scene.
Yeah.
Head hopping is terrible.
That's perfect.
Yeah. No.
I've read books where it's like every character in every scene, and even in a paragraph, it might be two, and it was like,
no.
No, at the top it says, "This is Callum Torian. Here is his location." Like, it's each chapter is basically a standalone mini story that follows one person.
Eric, I get it. If you can't see yourself as the main character, or at least consider yourself as a writer in the main character's head, you may not like first person. But if you can get to that, first person present tense is actually more exciting. But you have to be able to sit in that position. You can't, if you're the type who wants a story told to you, you may not like it.
Well, but you can write third person without it sounding like a story is being told to you.
Yeah.
It just takes, you have to do it in a really particular way.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I don't enjoy first person. When I'm reading and writing, I don't see myself as that character. I know that is common for a lot of people who like first person, is they feel like now I am this person and this is happening to me. And that's not, for me, what I enjoy when reading. When I'm reading and when I'm writing, I am an observer to all of it. I'm a deep observer in that I have thoughts and I have feelings and I experience all that, but I am not that character. I'm not the one that things are happening to.
You don't have to be the character it's happening to as much as you have to be able to say, I'm sitting on the shoulders of the character it's happening to. But if you're able to go along for the ride and associate with the character, that's where first person present can work.
Yeah.
But if you can't do that, that could be really hurt.
When I switched from first person past to third person past, I actually, I was like, oh, this is going to be really hard. And I tried just switching pronouns around, and it actually mostly worked.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back through. It wasn't actually as hard as I thought.
Yeah.
To switch from first to third.
Format. It's this different way of telling the story, definitely. The same events, you have to do it differently from first person than third person. Absolutely.
Because, and that's the thing is, your third person is going to be omniscient, right?
No.
Not
the way
it doesn't have to.
Well,
a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
That's
my third person is almost as deep as first person. It feels you're that person. You're feeling what they're feeling. It's just it's just a different. Instead of using I use character names.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't like omniscient because I don't feel connected in omniscient. Yeah. With omniscient, I feel like I'm the fly up on the ceiling.
It has to be like Terry Pratchett, for omniscient to work for me. The narrator has to be freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, omniscient doesn't have to have a narrator, but I don't. Omniscient means you can get in every character's head, and you know every event and every feeling of everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
And that gets hard to follow.
That's insane.
Of it. It takes away the tension of, character A doesn't know what character B knows. So when you're writing the point of character A, they're working off the fact that they don't know that. And
which is what I like about first person specifically that.
Yeah. See, it's
so think of third person as a whole lot of first persons put together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't put myself in one character's head. I've been trying. One of my works that I'm building is first person, and I just struggle with it.
Really?
Because for me, in my head, the inner monologue for me doesn't allow me to see it as just from one person's point of view. I see it from everything. And I see the world and I see it as I'm an observer. And so You know, the observer's not always omniscient, but the observer's there and watching. You know, sometimes the observer's going to miss, you know, the
I
hidden
don't think I could write like that.
blade in the sleeve.
So,
Yeah.
so the question I have for all three of you, though, you all kind of like more of the non-first person. Is it how you like writing, or is it what you also like reading?
Yes.
I
Right.
read both if it's written well.
Or have you known the difference?
I will.
What do you mean?
Honestly, if I pick up a book and I open it and it's first person, I'm gonna hesitate.
Okay.
Okay.
Just because I don't, and this is the thing, before joining TikTok and Book Talk, I had no idea how many different ways different people's minds worked, right? I would learn seriously, you know, it on my mind. So that shocked me. But for me, finding out why certain people like certain points of view has helped me. But for me, first person, I am very detached. I don't feel connected at all.
Yeah.
What I found there are people definitely like you, Gail, and that's your preference. That's great.
Yeah.
But I've also found a lot of people that said they don't like first person, but then they've said they've liked books that have been written in first person.
I think it has like first person can be kind of irritating if it's not done right, because it can have I like repeated so much. But it can be a little irritating if it's not written really well.
It also depends on the medium. If I'm reading, I can't do first person. Period. I just cannot do it.
But listening,
audio, Expeditionary Force is pretty much all first person. But, you know, being read to you, audio version, you know, it's I can put myself there, right? I can't. For me, it's reading it physically. I can't do first person. I just can't get into it. It drives me nuts. I can't break into that. Now, audio, I can do some audio.
Yeah.
I found an audiobook. Well, I have found a few I don't like, but that's not the point.
Lots of YA stuff is written in first person, and I do also enjoy YA. So that might be Gail. That might be why I can switch. Like, I don't mind either one.
A lot more sci-fi is being written in first person in the last couple of years too.
Yeah.
It is coming kind of as a more prevalence over the last several years to get it. Mine's definitely in first person.
It was tough. Like when I first published it, actually the first 5 episodes went out in first person, and it just didn't feel right. And so I rewrote them and published it in third. And it's the first time I've ever written in third. But it actually was hard for me to learn to write that way, because when I'm drafting, it's usually either omniscient or in first. But when I actually write it, like, that's still a new skill for me. And it turned out to not be as hard as I thought it would be, but it's kind of weird. I don't know if anyone else drafts in like different tenses than they like ultimately write in, but I'm all over the place.
I first wrote my first book, The After, in past tense.
Okay.
And I had an editor that wanted me to change the full book to present tense. Like, went and did every single thing, changed it to present tense.
Okay.
And I'm like, holy crap, I've got like 30,000 edits. But I went through and did it. And I liked it.
That was where I got most of my typos, actually. The first round was when I switched.
A lot of typos happened from that. But it's interesting.
Person, I guess. I don't want it to sound like, ugh.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a preference. And of course, it would be about the book itself and the writing. Do you like the style? All those good things.
Yeah.
I say I hate omnipresent stuff, but I've read a bunch of omnipresent books, and some of them I'll even recommend. I would prefer not to read anymore, but that's just. And as I actually think it is, it's kind of the different ways people sit and think about things in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
We've got people
It
commenting
really does.
like that they're writing in third, writing in first. So it's just interesting. Everybody's got their own method and preferences for this stuff.
Right. And I mean, like Gail said, it's not an for me. It's just, it's harder for me to get into, significantly harder if it's first person.
It's like if you can find the book that really grabs you once you start it, then you get, it's got you.
Yeah.
I know that I have to get past my own kind of.
So that's the nice thing about books, right?
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
In the way in your opinion, you've got your own preference.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about writing and writers.
It's crazy. We're talking about different preferences and we're not even getting in a fight. It's the internet.
I mean, it's like
I got in a fight earlier with someone about preferences, so I'll leave that alone.
This does not have to be so dire, people.
Are we civilized adults?
Right.
I don't know. You're in Georgia tonight. Did it stay civilized?
Let's see. I hadn't refreshed that website yet.
I didn't mean the results. I meant that leading up to the results.
And yes, that is the answer.
Oh, you forgot it was the internet. Are you going to start fighting with us now?
It probably will not stay civilized based off of what I'm looking at.
Oh.
Only 50% of.
Oh, we can't talk about these things. We'll get.
We can't directly, at least.
Only 50% of the things have been thought of or have been done.
Eric's going to look up.
I figured by now some more would come in.
Yeah. No, it says 51%. So
that's all the early.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've been going for almost 2 hours, and I feel like we could talk forever. But maybe
this is the way these go. So I schedule for 45 minutes just so people don't feel bad if they want to get out at 45 minutes.
The internet. Let me look.
But we may want to eventually. I have to rewrite episode 1 and write episode 17. So at some point in time, I need to go write.
So we'll coordinate it through the Discord, but I'm up for doing these every Tuesday. Now, what I do is I do post these on my YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
I won't be able to do that for a day or two because that process takes hours.
I may not be able to do it like every week. I've got other lives piling up, but yeah, like from time to time.
The idea I want to do is for the ones I host, I want to do kind of more common. But I recommend each of you start them up. And if you see authors you want to invite into the meeting, just do it. It's one thing I want to do and talk about more on the Discord is get more sci-fi authors doing these lives. If you look at the romance and the smut community, which they prefer being called smut, I'm not degrading them.
No, I know.
If you look at those community, they are doing lives so often and they're getting so many followers and so many sales because they're doing it.
Say they write spicy books.
Yes. So I want to try to mimic that with sci-fi authors, and it doesn't have to always be me. I want to host kind of regularly on a regular schedule and post them on YouTube and stuff, but other people can start them. I will join other people's. You guys should join other people's, and let's build some sci-fi community.
I'm working to drag all of the Vela sci-fi people who have like really strong Velas, trying to drag them into lives and get some cross promotion going on.
And I think one thing that we do, let's just set the expectation here. Like the romance industry has been holding up the publishing industry for decades, so we're not gonna. Let's not pretend we're gonna like crush it.
We're not gonna supplant them or match them by any means.
No.
I just want to talk to some people who are writing sci-fi. Like let's put our expectations where they belong. I just want some community here.
I want to talk to good people, and hopefully through us talking together, we can build shared community, and hopefully through that shared community, we can promote this more.
Right.
Well, and one of the things, like, this may not be everybody's goal, but one of the things I really want to do is I want to kind of, at least for some sci-fi, it's not this scary technical thing. Like sci-fi can be fun and accessible, and like it's fantasy in space, right? Like I want I want to invite people into this community, and that's part of what I'd like to do.
I'm gonna have to tag you in a video that I did with another girl who was doing all the. It's romance in space. It's fighting in space. It's guns in space.
Yeah,
It was a great video. Great video.
Reminds me of the space team thing. Is this a space chair?
It's true, Aaron.
Space food.
No, it doesn't rock enough. Oh, don't get me started there. But thank you all for coming into this. I am going to post it up on YouTube. I'll send you the link when we get it there. And anything else, we'll coordinate on Discord.
I spent all afternoon setting up a Valmoran Chronicles Discord, and you can get to it from my thing that you're not supposed to talk about.
The hidden thing that goes down and up. Yeah.
But yeah, I set it up on the link tree this afternoon, and you can just click in there, and there's a spot to there's a channel to promo your own stuff. There's nobody in the Discord yet because I set it up this afternoon. But
is that an author Discord, or is that a fan Discord, or is it
author area? So like there's semi-private rooms that I can invite authors to just come and chit chat in, and then there's also zones that are more specific to this series, and a place where authors can promo. It's all just, please don't promo spam. Please keep it to once a month. And we're going to keep it that way as long as like people play nice. And otherwise I will boot people like crazy. But anybody who's on here, I just go ahead and join. And I'd love to chit chat with you about sci-fi or whatever.
And then I'll drop the stats for this live in the Discord so you guys know how many people joined, all those things like that.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I had a really good time talking to you guys.
Yeah, this was great.
Hey,
all right.
Have a great night.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.